Hi, I'm Norton Beckerman. I'm here to tell you a story about what happened to my brain and me, and to share with you what we learned as a result of it. I'm just a person like most of you, and like most of you, my brain and I were really comfortable with who we are and what we were doing in life. Had a super family, great friends, good job, lots of interests. And then, without warning, things started to change. It hit me in two waves. The first wave hit me in 1989. It was a virus that caused my brain to swell. The doctors said that it wasn't life-threatening, but that there might be some collateral damage. And there was. Bad short-term and working memory. Now, I never had a great memory, and I attributed it to the fact that I had a severe concussion as a kid. But now my memory was someplace between bad and barely acceptable. Spiral notebooks became my short-term memory. That's the way it was, and according to my doctors, that's the way it was going to be. But if I had known then what I know now, I would have never accepted bad memory as collateral damage. But at that time, my brain and I had no choice. So with notebooks in hand, we accepted our new reality and moved on. The second wave hit about 9 years later. When I went to talk, the voice that came out wasn't mine. It was high-pitched. Not great for a 6'4", 218-pound male, I'll tell you. But it got worse and worse. It went from high-pitched to screechy, to the point where I could barely croak out a discernible sound. Well, while this was all going on, I saw a variety of doctors and speech therapists. I even underwent an exploratory operation, but no one could tell me what was wrong. Finally, my neurologist said to me, "Well, your talking problems are an incurable disorder emanating from your brain, possibly manageable with shots to your vocal cords every 2 or 3 months." I took the shots. They made things worse. Apparently, whatever it was that was causing my talking problems wasn't manageable. At the time, I felt like my fixed genetic inheritance was letting me down, and no one could tell me why. The worse it got, the more isolated I felt. The world I knew was leaving me, and nobody could tell me why. But I couldn't just accept that. So I started to read some books on the brain, all of which were incredibly difficult to read, and none of which seemed to apply to me. Then one day, I received a flyer in the mail. It was talking about an academic conference on the latest happenings in brain science. I got the notes. At first glance, it appeared that they needed translation. So with spiral notebook and medical dictionary in hand, I started to read. God, it was fascinating. But it was quickly apparent that something new and exciting was happening in the neuroscience community that was turning it on its ear. Up to this point, people believed that most people stop generating experience-dependent brain cells in their early 20s. Experience-dependent brain cells allow us to absorb information and make new memories. They allow us to learn. If we didn't have experience-dependent brain cells, we couldn't learn that fire was hot, and we'd continue to go through life burning ourselves. Well, it was believed that people beyond the age of their early 20s didn't generate experience-dependent brain cells. So it was then obvious that older people couldn't learn. You know the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But the use of new technology had proven that humans can continue to generate experience-dependent brain cells throughout life. Experience-dependent brain cells are essential for memory and learning. But this new discovery that humans generate experience-dependent brain cells throughout life was creating commotion. Well, they referred to that as neurogenesis. And it was the relationship between neurogenesis and brain plasticity that was creating all the commotion. Brain plasticity refers to the movement of brain cells, cell pathways, and memory storage in response to what you do and don't do. Experience-dependent brain cells are essential for memory and learning, but brain plasticity arranged the memories according to their importance. If we continue to generate experience-dependent brain cells throughout life, then brain plasticity had to apply as well. I could learn. You can teach an old dog new tricks. I just have to teach myself. For the first time in a long time, I had hope. I knew that I was going to talk again, so I had to know more. I read everything I could get my hands on. I even took online courses on the brain. That led to a conclusion that my memory problems and my talking problems came from two different places. My memory problems were the result of physical damage to my brain and the lack of knowledge as to how to repair it. But if I had known then what I know now, it could have been repaired. And even though a lot of time had gone by, I knew it still could be repaired. My talking problems resulted from my teaching myself how not to talk. Before I lost my ability to talk, I was always putting on presentations in front of groups. I thought about this and realized that I was always talking ahead of what I was saying. My brain had apparently thought it best to coordinate my breathing with my thinking. I had to teach my brain how to coordinate my breathing with my talking. It would be like learning to play a musical instrument. I practiced 3 to 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. Then about the end of 2 years, I seemed to have hit a plateau. I was encouraged by what I had accomplished, but discouraged by the fact that my voice was still not right, and I couldn't get any further. Then one day I was reading about the brain, and I came across a reference to vagus nerves. Well, your vagus nerves run from your brain to your intestine. But if a person's head posture is bad, your vagus nerves can interfere with vocal cord function. And my wife had told me on several occasions that when I was practicing, I thrust my head forward in gooseneck fashion. I immediately went to my doctor and asked for a prescription for physical therapy. Boy, what a difference that made. I was able to break the speaking logjam in no time. I was able to reduce my practicing time from 5 days a week to 1 day a week. It took me 6 months, but I could talk again. I was back. And I was back, and to my surprise, I was back with a really good memory. All this time that I had been studying and practicing, I'd been learning. In my case, I'd been learning about the brain and how to speak. But I could have been learning about how to play the oboe or speak Chinese. It really didn't make any difference. What was important is that I was learning something new. Now, everything that I did wasn't work. My wife had introduced me to Sudoku puzzles. And I really enjoyed the puzzles, except I didn't like the way that the book suggested solving them. So I devised a method in my head to solve the puzzles where I wouldn't write a number in until I had solved for it. Now, I did this for relaxation. But as it turns out, working Sudoku puzzles that way and learning really helped me to build a good memory. Once I regained my ability to talk, I ventured out of my isolation. I first went to Arlington Senior Centers to teach classes on Sudoku, and I taught the classes to solve the puzzles the same way I had. I figured that it helped my memory, and it should help their memory as well. I took advantage of the first 10 minutes of the class to talk about brain function. I told them that their brain was not a fixed genetic inheritance and that it continued to respond to what they did and didn't do. I emphasized learning and hydration. Wasn't long before my Sudoku classes were pressing for longer presentations. Those longer presentations were well received, and I quickly became a regular talking about brain function. Then one day, a respected retired attorney came up to me. She wanted to say goodbye. She said she was getting on in age. She had no family, and she had to go someplace where they would take care of her when she went batty. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. People believed that aging caused cognitive decline, possibly dementia. They believed in what might be. And I already had a glimpse of what they were afraid of. I knew that they believed in a myth, and that had to be changed. But people shouldn't have had to go through what I went through to learn about their brain. So, I focused on Arlington. I actively pursued putting on presentations about brain function. I started writing my book, A User's Guide to a Healthy Brain. I began teaching a class. I put up an informational website. And I actively promoted the concept of brain health. If you're like most people, you never think of your brain as being healthy or unhealthy. It just is. It's a fixed genetic inheritance, and you have to make the best out of what it is you inherited. Well, it's not unusual. Most people take their brain for granted, and as a result, they don't take care of it. They go through life with a brain that becomes less and less healthy. And then they blame the lack of performance on age. And it's not age, it's what they've allowed to happen to their brain as they've aged. You're an educated audience. And I'll bet you're thinking to yourself, what is this guy talking about? My brain is fine. Well, that's your brain's comfort zone talking. But comfort comes as a guest, stays as a host, and remains to enslave us. And that's where we are today with our understanding, care, and use of our brain. That has to be changed. Living a brain-healthy life will take you out of your comfort zone, will open up new vistas and take you to new heights. And with what you've heard here today, we can make Arlington a model brain-healthy community. Your brain only knows what it knows. And today, your brain knows something that it didn't know before. So what do you know? Well, you know that you should continue learning throughout life. You'll enjoy it, and your brain will reward you with increased performance. You know that your brain is constantly changing in response to what you do and don't do. That determines what you can and can't do, which ultimately determines what you will and won't do. And what you will and won't do describes your brain's comfort zone. You know that you can continue to learn throughout life. Here's another. You know if your brain is not as healthy as it should be, your brain's not going to function as well as it could. But you also know that your brain is resilient, forgiving, and that a normal brain can be brought back to a healthy state at any age with effort and persistence. Regardless of how educated you are, if your brain isn't as healthy as it should be, it won't perform as well as it once did. So what is needed to be brain healthy? Well, first, continue to learn throughout life. Stay properly hydrated so that your brain can function effectively. Eat smaller amounts of food at one time more frequently so your brain can obtain the nutrition and energy more efficiently. Pay attention to your diet. It affects your brain function. Simple sugars, foods containing added sugars, sugary drinks can overwhelm your brain's ability to protect itself against damage and inflammation. Minimize your intake of saturated fats and cholesterol. Your body produces most of what it needs. and eat more foods that are rich in omega-3. Eat whole grains so that you're getting nutrition from the foods you eat. And if you choose to eat meat, make sure you select meat that's free-range and grass-fed so that your brain can continue to absorb omega-3. Stay physically active so that your blood vessels remain open, clean, and flexible, and so that your brain can generate the hormone needed to produce experience-dependent brain cells. Dance, swim, hike, explore, whatever. Just make it fun. Make sure that you get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. Your brain needs sleep. Sleep is when your brain consolidates information, repairs cells, and builds new ones. Your brain needs sleep to stay healthy. No, that's not really so hard, is it? Living a brain-healthy life is fun and exciting. It will take you out of your comfort zone and into the future. Together, we can make Arlington a brain-healthy community. And the place to start is with you. Thank you.